Powered by Rep Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Say the cool new flavors of spring and summer have arrived, and they are delicious and ready. What a lineup there is of the refreshing cold beverages, including the brand new lineup of Tim Hortons frozen quenchers. You've got orange tangerine, blackberry yuzu, strawberry watermelon, peach, and the new pineapple dragon fruit, and back by popular demand, the people demanding the Oreo double stuff iced cap. Ray Ferraro is on the road. That's an interesting backdrop for those who follow us on the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. Is that
a
like
prison
a
cell?
lion?
No, it's not a prison cell. No, go ahead. Yeah.
No, it looks like there's like a lion head above your bed or something.
Yeah, it is. So this hotel was the former post office of the United States, like in the 1800s. It is like this mammoth building. I'm actually a floor below the ground. And when I said
like
a prison cell, kind of. There's no.
Yeah.
Well, there's a window way up there, but you couldn't see out of it if you tried. Like, you just stay where they put you. But like this, if I got up and walked 2 strides, I would hit the other side of the room. And in the middle, in those 2 strides, is that bed you see, the closet, the bathroom. Like you got to go outside. What's the old line? You got to go outside to change your mind. It's like it's snug. It's snug.
Yeah. Well, the good news is you won't be there for long, right?
Game 5 tonight. Yeah, Game 5 tonight, and we'll see if Montreal can extend.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the Tim Hortons headlines coming up later. Off-season business league-wide is in full swing here, Ray, and we'll get into the whole coaching carousel, but it's the very latest from the fragile profession of being a head coach in the National Hockey League coming up. 1/4 of the league, 8 teams in the market for a head coach. Now, some of these guys have term left. Some of them don't, obviously, but talk about a position where you're hired to be fired eventually, and in some cases, and we'll talk about Rick talking the Vancouver Canucks momentarily here, but you can also opt out. But doesn't it feel, especially in the last few years, where the volatility in that position in the offseason is outrageous? Like, this isn't unusual to have 8 teams in the market for a new coach.
Yeah. I had a GM tell me, I don't know, maybe 5 or 7 years ago, there are cycles to this, that sometimes it's the coaches where lots of them get replaced. Sometimes it's the general managers where there's 3 or 4 or 5 general managers and, completely new direction. What is interesting to me is the general manager makes this selection of the coach. And in most times when the coach is changed, it's the general manager's choice. And then he makes another hire. And then generally they get a third hire, all under their umbrella.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, like, why do they get 3 coaches, the general managers?
Right.
Because in a lot, I mean, I know there's different circumstances in each of them. Like, sometimes you inherit a coach that you don't necessarily want. And you're like, I don't like the way this guy coaches, and we don't have really great results. And so that's like a freebie change, I think. But in my view, if the plan is, you got to give a plan 5 years. Like the general manager has to have like a 5-year window, because of the drafting and trades that they're going to do is going to take a little bit of time. But the constant overflow of coaches, I don't quite buy into that, because what it really means is they hired the wrong guy.
Yeah.
And why do you get a second one? Sure, absolutely, because you can hire the wrong guy. But to do it again?
Yeah.
But again, there are various circumstances that, the inherited coach is one of those circumstances. Like that's not my guy. That's not on the GM. But once you get into it, I think you get two coaches. Like, I don't think you should get three. That's just kind of what I think. But
all right, well, let's
maybe
go
it's more
through.
complicated than that.
Well, I guess individually, club by club, it can be. I get that. All right, so let's just look through some of the scenarios. Rick Tocchet informs the Vancouver Canucks Tuesday morning that he is out. He turns down a 5-year extension offer after a real brutal season for everyone inside the organization. Certainly the coaching staff and management, obviously ownership on top of that. And this was a tough year for all of those people. It really was. And someone close to the situation said, the reality is Tocchet is just burned out. Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out because Philadelphia is going to be knocking. They're going to be seeking permission from the Vancouver Canucks, maybe the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I will give, and I know in talking to Jimmy Rutherford, that the Canucks respect the position that Tocchet took. Now, going into the weekend, he was among the many conversations they were having about individual player training in the offseason, maybe making some changes to training camp, right? But he said, look, I first have to make the decision as to whether or not I'm in it for the long term. I'll let you know Sunday or Monday at the latest. Sunday, Monday go by, nothing. So then the Canucks had a pretty good indication that they weren't going to hold on to their guy in Rick Tocchet. So he mans up, just, I guess, invested in his own emotional repair work here. He mans up, pushes away that 5-year offer, big bucks, I'm sure, and says, "No, I need some time. I need some time." So were you at all surprised by that, or how difficult is this for both Tocchet and for the Vancouver Canucks to get to this place?
Okay, so for Tocchet, it's a lot easier walking away from 5 years knowing that you've got significant interest out there. Like, he's not stepping into the abyss here. There's clearly going to be interest, whether it's from Philly or whether it's from Pittsburgh. There's clearly interest. So I think that cushions that step off the curb for him. Remember when John Tortorella got fired or was let go in New York, or however he left in New York, I don't quite recall. And then it seemed like he was going to take time away. And then a month later, he signed in Vancouver. And he clearly needed a break at that time. He didn't take the break and it didn't work. Like, he needed time. Sheldon Keefe said he needed time after he got let go in Toronto. And then 3 weeks later, he signed in New Jersey. And I did a bunch of New Jersey games this year. He really didn't need the time. Like, he was engaged, and it was very clear he was in, right?
Yeah.
So Tocchet will be the only guy that knows whether he needs a break again. For the Canucks, it's really hard. He's a good coach. He dealt with a lot of stuff this year. He dealt with a lot of stuff. If you're Vancouver, you go, man, that's a kick right in the pants, because we like the coach. But you take yesterday and today, and go, that sucked. And then you move on. Like, there's no other way to do it. You can sit and wallow in the mud, but you can go, guess what? Now there's 8 coaches or 8 teams that need a coach. I don't want my 8th choice. I got to get going here. And so that's, like, there are all kinds of factors. Like, they can't fix the practice rink by next Tuesday.
No.
But what they can do is make a decision on it and say, this is going to be the site, or this is going, like, you can say Jimmy Rutherford's been super honest about, we're working towards it. Again, everything in everybody's training, everybody's coaching, everybody's training camp, you get to a point where you just got to step off the curb and say, I'm doing it. So in Vancouver, that's a factor. And so they've got to get to that. They've once you do that, which is more of a longer term fit, you've got to get to, which 3 or 4 coaches do I want to talk to? And I'm sure while they were waiting around for Tocchet to make his decision, they weren't sitting there thinking of Dregs. Every general manager, they all have a book
Oh yeah.
They have a
Yeah.
book of coaches that they like and what they do and what they don't like. And so that book's already
Hmm.
for every guy, it's sitting
Yeah.
there on their desk.
Yeah.
And so now you get into, with Rutherford and Alvin, and you get into it and say, who's the next guy? And you talk to one and you talk to another. Like, I know Mike Sullivan's name's out there. Mike Sullivan's staying in the East. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there is no chance he's leaving the East. And what
No.
he decides will impact what other coaches do.
Yeah. And look, from a Canucks perspective, sure, they're going to want experience, but experience can be defined in many different ways, right? It can
Mm-hmm.
be. I mean, there are lots of really good assistant associate coaches on NHL
Sure.
benches that have that level of experience. I think what's most important, um, what's the character, demeanor, the personality? How thick is the skin of that individual? Because as Rick Tocchet just experienced, it's a different animal when you're the head coach of a Canadian NHL team. And Vancouver is a very, very demanding and difficult market. So whoever succeeds Rick Tocchet is going to have to look Patrick Alvin and Jimmy Rutherford in the eye and say, I got it. I understand it. I know what the responsibility is. I know that it can be consuming. It's not going to get to me. It's not.
Right.
And that might be a challenge, right, Ray? That's not easy. That's not easy. That's hard to do.
Well, I would look at Craig Berube and say
Perfect example.
there is one way to deal with in my mind, with a Canadian market, and that's not to be expansive, but to be direct. And why did you flip the left wingers? I felt we needed to change. I liked player A with that first line. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
Chief doesn't get into the flowers anywhere. I'm watching the ESPN feed of the game last night, and Emily Kaplan asks him her second question. It was 0-0 now later in the game, or no, they were down 1-0, and she said, "Are you worried, or is there any concern about the pressure now?" And he went, "No, none." And I'm like, he would, and it wasn't rude. It was
No,
just
no,
like,
no.
it was
Matter of fact.
direct. And
Yeah.
I think that's really the way, because you're not going to please everyone. It just cannot happen. And you have to accept that, but direct, and you got to take it head on. You've got to accept that there's 500,000 coaches, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. And so I got to say, like, I know Talk just a little bit. He's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Wherever he's
Yeah.
going to go, he's going to be fine. And the Vancouver Canucks are going to hire a coach because that's what you do. And
Yeah.
it's going to get done in, I would suspect, relatively short order. Like, I don't think this is a 2-month process. I don't.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it's next Thursday. I don't think it's next Thursday, but I do think, like, as these coaching jobs get filled up, you got to be careful you don't get your 8th choice.
Right. Yeah. And look, as far as talk is concerned, again, repeating ourselves, Philadelphia, maybe Pittsburgh, Boston maybe kicks tires, right? I mean, we don't know, but I mean, that's the credibility of Rick Tocchet that is going to earn that interest. But I've mentioned this before. It's been suggested again, depending how he feels in the next week or two, there's some out there, Ray, who believe that he wants to be in Eastern USA. Maybe he just puts the brakes on, slides back into TV. It's nice. It's comfortable. You have fun with your buddies, and then if the juice starts flowing again a year from now, okay, well, maybe you just look at what the hockey world presents at that point. I'm not here to dismiss that theory. I think that's real, but that's
You
the
do,
soul
eh?
searching that Rick. I do.
Yep.
I think that's real. I think that's real. But you may also look at it. I mean, Talk has made some money over his days, right? I understand that, but he just pushed away from a 5-year extension in Van. Philadelphia is going to pay. And I want to talk, I'll transition now to Mike Sullivan, right? Because Mike Sullivan probably isn't going to Philadelphia. I mean, we think he's likely going to land with the New York Rangers. Somebody threw 30 schmil at me the other day, which has to be
For
ballpark, doesn't it?
how many years?
4 or 5. I mean,
Okay, so I have
yeah,
in my head
yeah.
5 years, 35 million. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league.
Yeah, and they'll pay it. They'll pay it.
And he is smart. He adjusts. I know there's a critique that he doesn't play as young players. Part of that is in Pittsburgh, you have never been able to play the young players because you're trying to win with Sid, right?
Yeah, sure.
I also think there is with the Rangers, their ship is kind of wandering all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like they really lost course this year. And they need somebody that is in charge, that looks like they're in charge, that has a plan, that has credibility. And Mike Sullivan answers for me, he answers all of that. If you're anywhere for 10 years, like Mike was, there will be detractors. That's just the way the coaching gig goes. But when I heard, Rangers open, Sullivan's leaving Pittsburgh, 7 million per year came to me. I think the top guys make 6 right now in their radar.
Yeah,
like
John
Cooper is,
yeah,
I think he's about 6. And so, that
seems fair.
Yeah.
Well, and then just the way the language was presented by the Penguins and Sullivan when he departed, how they mutually parted ways, right? I think he had 2 years left on his contract in Pittsburgh. Nobody walks away from that kind of cash. I mean, it's a guaranteed
$5
contract.
million.
Yeah, right. 5 plus, whatever it is. I mean, nobody walks away from that. So, I mean, there's got to be something already cooked in it. And then you top that with Chris Drury getting extended by the New York Rangers. I mean, there's lots of reasons. Some wanted to connect Joel Quenneville to Drury because of their Colorado days. I know that Q is he's expected to get a second interview with the Anaheim Ducks. So we'll see how things play out.
Now,
there.
Okay, I'm going to say that. And of course, I'm going to jump in on Joel because, I know him, of course. But eventually the penance is served. In every walk of our lives in North America, something happens, you get a punishment or something to serve, whatever I don't know if punishment is the correct word, but you get a time to serve, and eventually that's served. At some point, it's served, and there's going to be people that won't be happy with it, and you have to be willing, if you're the organization, to take that early on, and then Joel has to show why he will look at things differently than he did, and then that's it. I would be interested in talking to Joel for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's head to the ice, and we'll get to the games momentarily. But there is one more headline that we've got to address, and that is the Aaron Ekblad suspension. 2 games for the forearm shiver on Brandon Hagel of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't deserve 2 games. I was surprised it was 2 games. I thought it would be a 1-game suspension because you do apply the multiplier, right? It's playoff hockey, and a playoff game means more than a regular season game, even though he's coming off that mega suspension. So a couple of things. I mean, are we okay with, we're not okay with it, but do you just say, look, it's a judgment call. You still have to have officiating judgment, in the field of play of the National Hockey League in a high-paced game. So it was a missed call. You move on, which then amplifies the reason for having the Department of Player Safety in the first place, right? Didn't help Tampa Bay in the moment, although they responded with 2 quick goals and found a way to punish Florida. But did they turn a negative into a positive, they being the National Hockey League, by the officials missing a blatant call on the ice with the Player Safety Department coming in and saying, you can't do that, and it's a 2-game suspension.
Okay, what I thought should have happened, and I'd love to hear an official's view on this. They have, when they miss, they have the option of giving a 5-minute major and then reviewing it. They easily could have done that because Hagel was hurt and clearly was the recipient of some kind of check that they didn't see, but he was hurt and on the ice. The medical staff had to go out and help him. Had they reviewed that, that would have been a 5-minute major. Now, they also could put the 5-minute major on the board, review it, and take it away. I thought that was, and I was doing the game. I thought that was a miss. I didn't catch that nuance to the play. I should have said that, but I missed it. The 2-game suspension, I'm not surprised at all. The only thing that made contact was his forearm and elbow to Hagel's head. And now so 1 game to me wasn't going to be enough because Hagel's not playing in game 5.
Right. Yeah.
So at the very least, it's got to be more than that. And so it's not even a tough result for Ekblad. It's the correct result. And to make matters worse for Tampa, Ekblad scores late in the game.
Yeah.
Right, to tie the game. Well, actually, he scored twice. One of them got taken away for an offside review. But in my mind, he deserved the 2-minute or the 2 games for that.
All right, we've got Battle of Ontario. We've got the Oilers taking over the series with the Los Angeles Kings. We'll get to that momentarily. Just a quick thought on the Hurricanes advancing, eliminating the New Jersey Devils. And by the way, Carolina just announcing that they've extended Taylor Hall by 3 years, total $9.5 million. So Taylor Hall, in a short time with the Hurricanes, proves that he has game, according to Eric Tulsky, the general manager there. But Carolina, man, they look good. They look good. So is it more about Carolina looking good and less about New Jersey just not being up for the test, or just always that kind of combination of both things factoring in?
Well, Jersey played without a good portion of their defense throughout the series, and also without Jack Hughes. I mean, so not being up for the test. Well, the lineup they had wasn't up to the test. I mean, they. I think they hung in there outside of game 1 when they got steamrolled. They played about as hard as they were going to play, and eventually you just run out of ammunition. Like you take both Hughes brothers out of the lineup, like you're not even close to the same team.
No,
right? You take Brendan Dillon out of the lineup, you're not even close to the same team. Their third defense pair yesterday was Seamus Casey and Simone Nemetz, and like 2 raw rookies. Like it's gonna happen. On the Carolina side, I think more than anything, the best note of the series was Svechnikov had a really good series. Late in the series, he became a real factor, and he only had 20 goals this year. He's a player that I watch and I go, man, there's more there. Like that guy is good. And he's powerful, and he should be built for the playoffs. And there are times in series when he goes really quiet. But now Carolina's through early. First team through. They get a few days off. Freddie Anderson gets closer to being healthy. They can relax whatever bumps and bruises they have. But that's, I had that series in 5 games for Carolina.
Nice.
I just felt that New Jersey was going to be a step behind, in particular without Jack Hughes. I didn't, of course, know about the other injuries that were going to pop up.
Well, how about this? Textbook playoff road win by the Ottawa Senators, right? 4-0. They beat Toronto on home ice. The Leafs unable to eliminate the Sens in either game 4 or game 5. So how impressed are you at the resolve of the Ottawa Senators? And really just the overall balance, right? They're leaning on a young core, but they knew that, and that's how this team has been built. Make sure that you give that young group enough pressure and make sure they face enough adversity over the course of the year to earn a playoff spot and then to the playoffs so that you're better next year. But this series is far from over based on the last 2 games.
For sure. I'm doing the Washington Montreal game today, and Christian Dvorak had a quote. He said, "We're not here to learn lessons. We're here to try to win." And so
Yeah.
the reason I bring that up, of course, is the
Yeah.
Senators. It's nice to learn lessons, but man, you're getting battered around here. I want to win. I don't want to this learn the lesson thing. Like, who cares? I want to win. So I felt in the offseason one of the biggest acquisitions of the offseason was Linus Ullmark. And early in the series, he really wasn't much of a factor, not a positive one anyway. In games 4 and 5, he was excellent.
Oof, he was.
And so if he's excellent, they got a chance. I'm going to bring up a couple players for Ottawa that I think really kind of typify what's going on. Number one last night was Shane Pinto. I thought he was awesome. Man, he was
really good
everywhere, both defensively and with the puck. He carried it with confidence. I'm like, man, that's the guy they've been waiting on. Number two is Jake Sanderson is on the cusp of being a star if he's not already.
Right.
Like, my God, that guy, it seems limitless in the minutes he can play. He reminded me last night, who he reminded me of was Miro Heiskanen. It's just that, like, he go into a corner and somehow escape. His skating is elite. His vision and moving the puck is like next level. And I'm like, that's their star. Tyler Clevin. Oh my God, he played like a runaway truck last night. They could not corner him to forecheck him. I was like, and when they did, he's so big, he just absorbs the hit.
He does.
And off they go. And then, of course, the others is Ullmark. So I didn't even get into Stützle and Giroux and Tkachuk and right? Like, I thought Ottawa played really great. Better in game 5 than they did in game 4.
Agreed.
And now the whole dump truck of pressure falls back on the Toronto Stars again.
Right.
To me, until Matthews hit the post late, he looked like he was picking his way around the ice, like kind of thinking his way around, instead of just like when he's at his best, he's just a force.
Yes.
Right. And he wasn't. And now they go to Ottawa, and nothing to say they can't win in Ottawa. Why? Of course they can. But man, they've made this more difficult on themselves than they needed to.
But if you're a Leafs fan, right, it's fair to expect that Austin Matthews or William Nylander, maybe Marner, less John Tavares, but those players, one of them should be able to throw the team on his back for a stretch of the game. Maybe not wire to wire, but for a stretch of the game. And I mentioned this in postgame last night. That, of course, the perfect scenario is he doesn't hit the post. He scores in overtime in game 4, and we're not having this conversation, right?
Sure.
But even last night, do something, dominate for a stretch. And if you don't generate the offense, maybe you're dragging a player with you and you're earning another power play, right? Yeah. And is it fair for the Leafs fans to expect one of those guys to do that in game 6 or game 7?
Well, yeah, for sure it is. I mean, they're different players. Like they're not like an average or a just slightly above average player. We expect more from the best players. Like that's like saying, should we expect more from Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid in a series? Yes, because they're better than everybody else.
But we've also seen it from those two guys last year, and we haven't seen that from Toronto. Yeah.
Okay, so here's another guy. Cale Makar's had a very average series for Colorado. Certainly by his standard.
Yeah.
And would Colorado fans be right to expect him to take over a stretch of a game? Well, they should, because he can. Right?
Sure.
Like that's and so I think it's totally fair to expect that from the elite of the elite players, which they are. Yet now they're, I don't know, what are they in elimination games now? I mean, I know it goes back to the rookie years, but like 1 in 13, I think so. And it's a thing. And so they got to put that to bed. They got to win one of these games. And
Yeah.
I don't know why it can't be game 6. It can be, but that game 5 was not good enough. Not for them.
All right. Well, speaking of momentum shifts, I mean, the Oilers have done that in their series with the Los Angeles Kings. Right now, the Kings are on the brink of elimination. Interesting post game last night after the win. Zach Hyman described that win and said that it's probably the best performance they've had this year in terms of everyone chipping in, everyone contributing. And I mean, noticeable is how they've taken games in hand in that third period. I think they've outscored the Kings in the last 3 games, like 8-0 in the third period, and something like 13-5 overall in the series. So, what is this more about what Edmonton is doing, or again, is it the balance of Edmonton taking advantage of Los Angeles, a team that all of a sudden looks pretty vulnerable?
Well, I mean, the game's in Edmonton. LA's got the lead in the third period of both of them. And certainly game 4, I mean, that game should have been over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Both the goals, I know the Byfield one gets all the, where he turns it over. I mean, that puck's just got to be off
tough.
the glass.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they turned the puck over on the second goal too. And you cannot give the Oilers extra time in your zone. You can't give that to them. They're going to take lots. You can't give them more. The game last night, I mean, LA got steamrolled early. Like that. I mean, that game should have been over in the first period.
Goalie was good. Yeah.
Really great. Darcy Kemper was awesome. Now they go back. It's the same story, the same thing, the same team fighting for your life again. And I don't generally believe in momentum in a series because I think it ends with each game and the games start really quite new. This feels different. It feels like the Oilers are getting better and the Kings are getting worse.
Sure.
In this series. This is a real concerning couple of days for LA here for sure.
All right, you're in Washington. We established that right off the top of the podcast here.
Yeah, by the Lionhead.
And the Lionhead, yes. All right. The Caps seemingly too much for the Habs or no? I mean, you referenced Christian Dvorak a couple of minutes ago, right? Yep. So there's still a level of belief in Montreal, but in fairness, the Washington Capitals are a heck of a story. Is Prodash good to go, or we're not sure yet?
We're not sure. He keeps getting he keeps looking more and more game ready.
Right.
So they just want to be really careful that the repaired area, like he got a skate cut, they just have to be really careful that repaired area is really in a spot that they're comfortable it won't re-tear. And so I'm sure at this point they're, caution over anything else is really where they're at. If he comes back, it would be really hard to imagine he's going to come back to 30-goal Alexei Protas. Right. Like he's a mountain of a human. It's going to take him a few minutes or a few games or a game and a bit to get himself back. But if he comes into the lineup, it's another heavy body for Montreal to deal with. And the size difference is really quite noticeable when you're watching the games up close. I've been super impressed with Montreal. Man, they do not go away. They do not give up the fight. They've been in every game. Like the game last night, or the other night, if they look at it and they go, "Oh, it was 5-2, they got blown out." They were leading 2-1 in the third. Right? And then Tom Wilson blows up Carrier. And oh my God, by the way,
what a hit, man.
That's like the bug in the windshield right there. Right. And and Wilson was the windshield. And 15 seconds later, it's 2-2. But then they're still in the game, Drake. It's like Montreal, it's really impressive. But I think on the other side, you got to say 1 year ago, Washington was out in 4 games against the Rangers. They didn't have a chance. They get 11 points this year. And now they're 3 periods away from moving to the second round. It's really they've had an impressive stint here, impressive year.
No question about that. Vegas mini in a battle. Brett Hutton scored in overtime.
Mm,
Golden Knights lead that series 3-2. Game 5, Battle of Florida. We kind of touched on it earlier with
yeah.
the Ekblad suspension. Panthers can punt the Lightning in 5 games with a win. So I guess let's wrap up with Winnipeg hosting St. Louis. And yeah, obviously it's been a home series, right? Winnipeg opens up with 2 wins in Winnipeg. Then they go into St. Louis. But the alarming thing for me is twofold. I mean, Winnipeg got slaughtered in St. Louis.
Right.
And Connor Hellebuyck, they're just, I mean, flaws in his game right now, too much pressure. Winnipeg getting away from the structure, the detail game that they're noted for, all of that for sure. I had one veteran coach say to me in game 4, and not that he was being critical of Scott Arniel, he's just like an old school coach here, old school coach. He's like, I'd have left Hellebuyck in there. I wouldn't have pulled him in the third period for a second straight game. I know the game was out of hand, but leave him in the fight. Leave him in the battle. You're part of what put the Jets in the predicament, so you're gonna wear this one with everyone else. I don't know if I subscribe to that, because Arniel is obviously thinking about, all right, let's start the repair job here. Let's get his mind in a good place. He's got a couple of days to rest, all of those things. Let's focus on game 5. I mean, what are you seeing in Hellebuyck and in the Jets game that eroded so quickly?
One of the fun things about traveling around is you run into people and you have these conversations with people you wouldn't normally have, but you just happen to run into them, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I talked to a scout the other day in Florida. Just ran into him. And of course, we get around, we're talking about all the series. That's what scouts do. And we get to Winnipeg. And I said, man, what is going on with Hellebuyck? He goes, I go, every year in the playoffs, it seems like he gets to this point where it's a real struggle. He goes, I think he plays too much. And he said, every year he plays 60 plus games. What would happen if he played 50 games?
Right.
He goes, would he be a little bit, 5% fresher?
Interesting.
Would that? And I was like, ooh, I never really thought of that. But, you know, you do in the middle of the season when you see his numbers are, you know, like he's more games played, but, you know, geez, he doesn't give up any goals. And, you know, I see why they play him, but maybe there's something to that. The part that would concern me is if you looked at the 2 teams and said, who's played closer to their game the most, you would pick St. Louis by a mile.
Yeah.
In this series. And that would be concerning to me. I will say that Jim Montgomery said after game 4, well, we own the front of the net. I wouldn't have said that. I just think, like, why poke the bear?
That's poking the bear, sure. Yeah.
Just say we had a really good game. I like the way we played in all the traffic areas, like whatever.
Yeah.
Jim can say whatever he wants, but to me it was like you've already got them reeling. Don't give them anything they can go, oh yeah, man, they did hang, like the players to go, screw that. I'm going to win my battle in front of the net. Right. But for Winnipeg, I would say the like Toronto, the pressure now, the dump truck of pressure is all flipped onto them. St. Louis is just playing. They got those young guys that are running all over the place and lots of energy, and, you know, they feel good about themselves. How many Winnipeg Jets are saying, you know what, I feel really good about my game right now. It's going to be a tough game for them.
It is, and Gabe Vilardi comes in the mix. I mean, he's been out for a while, so there's some lineup adjustments there that are made. He'll saddle up with I assume Scheifele and Connor, right? He'll slide into that first power play. But again, you're talking about a player who can be influential. There's no doubt about that. But it's hard to step into a series, isn't it, after missing that amount of time, especially late in a series when you're facing a real tough physical opponent.
I can't imagine what those first couple of shifts are going to feel like to him. He's like, because you can imagine, we all know, we've been in that building. It's going to be incredibly loud.
It will be loud.
everything is going to feel like it's going really fast,
Yeah.
like super fast. And the puck will come to him, and I'm sure he's going to bobble it and, beat it up a little bit. And the quicker he can take a breath and settle in, the better he'll be. And everybody does that at a different time frame. Some guys can do it relatively quickly. Others, it's like it might be a game before they get through, but they certainly could use him.
I mean, let's just wrap up the Tim Hortons headlines with this. It's not unusual for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs to arguably be the most entertaining. And I think we're there for the most part, aren't we? We're there. I mean, maybe there's more bite and nastiness. Officiating is always a storyline until everybody settles down. And I mean everybody. The players, the coaches, the officials, the media, the fans. Everybody needs to settle down. But, I mean, are you buying what I'm selling? I mean, this first round to me has been terrific. Across the board, it's been really good.
Well, I always equate this to what the NCAA college basketball tournament looks like. The first weekend is often the most entertaining because you go from game to game, site to site.
Yeah.
2-2 in this series, 3-1 in this series. Now it's 3-2 and it's, oh my God, here comes the other 2-2 series. Like there's so much going on. There's like a real momentum. There's no days off, like for the fan, right? So that once you get to the point where there's a day off or two, you kind of lose it, and then you got to build it back up again. So the first round's always, to me, is always great entertainment.
Those are your headlines. Thank you to our good friends at Tim Hortons. We'll have Ask Ray and Dregs Anything coming up later in the week. We'll give everybody a little bit more time to digest the goings on. Maybe we'll have more eliminations by the next time we meet. Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, brought to us by Akon. So look forward to that. We'll let you go, Ray. You've got a game to prep for. By the way, just to put a bow on all of this, because you guys were kind enough to allow me to gush over Katie on the weekend, right? Went to the Music Man in Thunder Bay, sold out auditorium with the Symphony Orchestra.
Easy for you to say.
Easy
and
for me to say.
And how did it go? How did it go?
Oh, man. 12 out of 10. 12 out of 10.
What were you like sitting there watching?
I was okay. Holly was not so good. Not so good. And, Katie is
nervous,
right,
proud, emotional.
All of it, but certainly nerves to start because
of course.
Sold out auditorium, 1,500 people, no extras. Like there were, so if somebody gets sick, the show goes on, right? So there was that sort of nervous energy and all that, but a packed house, and Katie and the cast knocked it out of the park. So it was a fun weekend. It's a good way to kind of unwind.
Good for you. Good for Katie. Good for your family. That's awesome to hear.
All right, buddy. So where do you go from? And I'm not writing off the Montreal Canadiens, nor are you. But what's next for you? You follow the series to the end, or are you shifting over? No. Okay.
I'm going home tomorrow. Okay. If there are game 7s on Saturday, I'll be going somewhere, but we won't know that till Thursday night until we find out if there's game 7s. So the travel department will be sitting there Thursday night and get just a deluge of phone calls, So, I don't know where I'm going or what the next game is past this one, but I'm going home tomorrow.
I mean, ESPN has so much money. Why don't they just have like a private jet that's just there at your beck?
Dregs, you should ask somebody that. I think you should ask somebody that.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't get the points, and you'd have to dip into your pocket for your off-season travel. All the stuff
what?
That
would be just fine. That would be just fine.
So I'll have you.
I'll have you make that call for me. That would be great.
All right, buddy. Have a good call tonight. We'll be watching, and we'll catch up with you later in the week, on the weekend, whatever. We'll make it work.
You betcha. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you later in the week. Later, Dregs.
All right, and thank you. You bet. Thanks to our sponsors as well, Ray, who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make this podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons, and thank you to Akon. Enjoy the rest of the first round. I think we'll visit again before it concludes, but in the meantime, stay safe, everybody.